The automatic doors slid open with a faint whoosh, letting in a gust of cold air from the outside. A few employees glanced up instinctively, then quickly looked away when they saw who had entered. She was impossible to miss. Shoulder-length blonde hair styled into an aggressive bob, oversized sunglasses perched on her nose despite the dim store lighting, and a handbag clutched in a death grip against her side as if she were walking into a battlefield. Karen marched toward the customer service counter with the unwavering confidence of someone who had never heard the word no before. The clacking of her heels on the tiled floor sent an unspoken warning. Someone was about to have a very bad day. She came to an abrupt stop in front of the counter and, without a word, hoisted an old, dust-covered flat-screen TV onto the surface with a dramatic thud. Jake, the employee stationed at the counter, barely had time to process the sight before Karen let out an exaggerated sigh, shaking her head as if she were dealing with the world's greatest inconvenience. "I need to return this," she announced. Her voice was sharp, clipped, and dripping with impatience. Jake blinked at the TV. It wasn't just old, it looked ancient in retail years. The model was at least 5 years outdated, its edges slightly scuffed, and the brand logo at the bottom was partially worn off. He glanced back at Karen, who had folded her arms, tapping a manicured nail against her elbow. "Ma'am, do you have the receipt?" he asked, keeping his voice polite and professional. Karen scoffed, as if the mere suggestion was absurd. "No, I don't have the receipt. Who keeps receipts for this long? But I bought it here and it broke, so I expect a full refund." Jake resisted the urge to sigh. "Our return policy only covers items for 30 days. Even with a receipt, we wouldn't be able to process a return for something this old." Karen's lips pressed into a thin line. She removed her sunglasses, revealing narrowed, piercing eyes. "Are you serious right now?" she demanded. Jake nodded, standing firm. "I'm afraid so." Karen leaned in slightly, her perfume, a cloying mix of floral and something synthetic, becoming overwhelming. "Listen, I'm a very loyal customer. I spend a lot of money in this store. If you were smart, you'd make an exception." Jake had been working retail long enough to know exactly where this was headed. He was already bracing for impact. "I understand, but the policy is firm. If the TV is broken, you might be able to get it repaired through the manufacturer, but..." Karen slammed her hand against the counter, making nearby customers glance over. "I don't want it repaired. I want my money back." Her voice had climbed a full octave. Jake held his ground. "I'm sorry, ma'am, but we can't process a refund for an item that's 5 years old." Karen inhaled sharply through her nose, nostrils flaring. "Oh, this is ridiculous. Give me your manager. Now." Jake didn't argue. He simply turned, hit the intercom, and requested assistance at customer service. Within moments, Lisa, the store manager, emerged from the back office, her expression composed but wary. She had seen Karen before. Lisa approached the counter with an air of calm authority. "How can I help you today?" Karen immediately switched tactics. Her expression softened into something meant to resemble charm, though it barely masked the underlying anger. "Hi, dear. I was just telling this boy," she gestured dismissively at Jake as if he were an inanimate object, "that I need to return this TV. It broke and I don't have a receipt, but surely you can do something for a loyal customer like me?" Lisa didn't so much as blink. "Unfortunately, our return policy is very clear. Without a receipt, we can't process a return. And even with one, the warranty period is long over." Karen's smile dropped instantly. "So you're just going to steal my money, is that it?" Her voice turned shrill, cutting through the usual store chatter like a knife. Lisa remained unfazed. "You purchased this TV 5 years ago. That's far beyond any return window." Karen let out a short, humorless laugh. "You people are unbelievable. You know, other stores take care of their customers. If this is how you treat people who spend money here, maybe I should take my business elsewhere." "That's your choice," Lisa said, completely unbothered. Karen's face turned red. "Wow. Just wow," she seethed. "I will be leaving a review about this. And trust me, it will not be a good one." Lisa gave a small nod. "You're free to do that." Karen clenched her jaw so hard it looked like she might shatter a molar. But then, just as Lisa thought the situation was about to de-escalate, Karen did something neither of them expected. With a sudden, exaggerated movement, she shoved the TV off the counter. It crashed to the floor with a sickening crack, the screen shattering into a spiderweb of broken glass. The sound echoed through the store, followed by a stunned silence. Customers turned to stare. Employees froze in place. For a moment, even Karen seemed surprised by her own actions. But then she squared her shoulders, flicked her hair back, and sneered. "Well, Now it's broken, she said. So what are you going to do about it? Jake and Lisa exchanged glances. This wasn't just an angry customer anymore. This was outright malicious destruction. Lisa took a slow, deep breath before speaking. Ma'am, I'm going to have to ask you to leave. Karen smirked. Or what? Lisa's expression remained unreadable as she reached for the store phone. Or security will escort you out. For the first time, Karen hesitated. The realization that she might have taken things too far flickered across her face. But instead of backing down, she doubled down. Go ahead, she taunted. Call security. I'll be back with my lawyer. And with that, she turned on her heel and stormed toward the exit, the shattered remains of the TV lying in her wake. Jake let out a slow exhale watching her go. Well, he muttered. That went well. Lisa rubbed her temples. Something tells me this isn't over. The store had settled back into its usual rhythm, but the tension still lingered in the air like the fading scent of a storm. Employees whispered about what had just happened. Customers stepped carefully around the shattered remains of the TV, and Lisa was already on the phone with maintenance to have the mess cleaned up. Jake stood behind the counter, arms crossed, exhaling through his nose. Think she'll actually come back with a lawyer? Lisa let out a humorless chuckle. Not a chance. People like her use lawyer, the same way toddlers use, I'm gonna tell mom. It's just noise. But noise had a way of making itself heard. The next morning, the store opened as usual, with the scent of freshly unboxed merchandise filling the air and the soft hum of pop music playing overhead. For a few blissful hours, everything seemed normal. And then Karen returned. She didn't storm in this time. Instead, she entered with calculated purpose, walking with slow, deliberate steps, her lips curled into a smug smile. Draped over her arm was an expensive designer handbag that hadn't been there yesterday, and in her other hand she clutched a stack of neatly printed papers. Lisa spotted her immediately from across the store. She sighed, rolling her shoulders like a boxer stepping back into the ring. Round 2, she muttered under her breath before making her way toward customer service. Karen arrived at the counter with a dramatic flourish, slapping the papers down in front of Jake, who instinctively took a half step back. There, she declared, eyes gleaming. Legal action. My lawyer has drafted a complaint against this establishment for refusing to honor my consumer rights. Jake hesitated, then cautiously picked up the papers. They were strange. The formatting was uneven, the font sizes inconsistent, and several legal terms were misused to the point of absurdity. Lisa appeared beside him, glancing down at the so-called legal document before looking back up at Karen with an expression that teetered between exhaustion and amusement. Ma'am, she said carefully, I'm going to assume you typed this yourself. Karen's eyes widened, her carefully crafted composure slipping for just a second before she scoffed. Excuse me? Are you accusing me of lying? Lisa didn't even blink. I'm accusing you of using Comic Sans on a legal document. A murmur of quiet laughter from nearby customers made Karen's cheeks flush red. She straightened, regaining her bravado. It doesn't matter what font was used, she snapped. This is a legitimate legal notice. If you do not issue my refund, I will take this to court and trust me, you will lose. Lisa gave her a slow, measured look. Let's say hypothetically this was an actual legal case. You're claiming emotional distress, financial damages, and property loss over a television you yourself threw on the ground, in full view of security cameras and multiple witnesses. Karen's nostrils flared. The TV was faulty. It was already broken. You mean the same TV that worked fine for 5 years? Lisa countered. Karen's jaw clenched. She had expected fear. Resistance maybe, but fear most of all. Instead, she was being met with nothing but calm indifference, and it was making her unravel. You think you're so smart, don't you? She hissed. Let me make something very clear to you, I don't lose. Ever. Lisa leaned on the counter, meeting Karen's gaze head-on. Then you might be in for a rough day. For a second it seemed like Karen might actually combust on the spot. But instead she took a slow, deep breath, schooling her expression back into a tight-lipped smirk. Fine, she said. You want to play hardball? Let's play. With exaggerated delicacy, she reached into her bag and pulled out her phone. With a few quick taps, she turned the screen toward them, revealing a half-written social media post. Disgusting service at store name. Employees here are rude, unprofessional, and have no respect for loyal customers. They refused to refund my broken TV and treated me like garbage. Do not shop here. #boycott #customer service fail, ***. Lisa barely had time to register the post before Karen's thumb hovered dramatically over the post button. I have thousands of followers, she declared. One click, and this store's reputation will tank. Jake snorted before he could stop himself. Lisa smirked. Asterisk thousands asterisk, she repeated. Karen, I checked your profile last night. You have 214 followers. And one of them is your cat. Another burst of laughter rippled through the store. Karen's face twisted into something ugly. So you stalked me? She accused. Lisa shrugged. Just due diligence. But go ahead, post it. You know what else I did? I also forwarded the security footage of you breaking the TV to our corporate office. And if you try to smear us online, we'll be happy to post the footage publicly as a response. Your choice. Karen's finger trembled slightly over the screen. For the first time she looked unsure. Lisa folded her arms. You're used to bullying people into giving you what you want, aren't you? Throwing fits, making threats, pretending to be the victim. But here's the thing, you don't scare me. And you don't scare this store. A muscle twitched in Karen's jaw. She lowered the phone slightly, her eyes darting between Lisa and Jake. For a moment it looked like she might finally give up. Then, in a move so abrupt it startled even her, she slammed the phone down on the counter and let out a dramatic, exaggerated sob. I can't believe this, she wailed, loud enough that heads turned from halfway across the store. I'm just a single woman trying to make it in this world, and you people are ruining my life. Jake exchanged a look with Lisa. And there it is, he muttered. Karen buried her face in her hands, making a spectacle of her faux distress, but Lisa was already done. She motioned to the nearest employee. Get security. At the word security, Karen's hands dropped from her face. You wouldn't dare, she hissed through gritted teeth. Lisa smiled. Watch me. For a long, tense moment, they stared each other down. And then Karen did something unexpected. She took a step back. Her lips curled into a sneer, but her body language had shifted. You think you've won? She spat. This isn't over. Lisa simply tilted her head. Then I'll see you next time. Karen yanked her phone off the counter and spun on her heel, marching toward the exit. Her face was burning with humiliation, but there was something else there too, determination. Lisa exhaled slowly as she watched Karen disappear through the automatic doors. She's coming back, Jake murmured. Lisa nodded. Oh, definitely. The store had barely settled after Karen's last meltdown before the doors whooshed open again. This time she didn't come alone. Striding in beside her was a man in a cheap, ill-fitting suit, clutching a briefcase like it contained the secrets of the universe. His hair was slicked back with a little too much gel, and his tie was a shade too bright, as if he'd dressed for the role of lawyer, based on TV dramas rather than actual courtroom experience. Lisa, already at the customer service counter, didn't even sigh this time. She simply set down her clipboard and braced herself. Karen strutted forward like a queen returning to reclaim her throne, a smug smile plastered across her face. I told you this wasn't over, she announced, her voice dripping with triumph. Meet my lawyer, Mr. Daniels. The man beside her cleared his throat and adjusted his tie. I represent Ms. Karen, Ms. Whitmore, in a legal matter against this establishment. I'd like to speak to your legal department immediately. Lisa gave him a slow, unimpressed once-over. Do you have an appointment? Daniels hesitated. I don't need an appointment. I'm here to discuss a case of consumer fraud, negligence, and emotional distress. Lisa nodded. Right. And what law firm are you with? Pause. Daniels glanced at Karen. She shot him a sharp look, then covered quickly. That's not relevant right now. What's relevant is that you refused to issue my refund, and now you're facing serious legal consequences. Jake, standing nearby, stifled a laugh. Lisa shot him a warning glance before turning back to Karen. Let me get this straight. You're claiming fraud because we refused to refund a 5-year-old TV that you deliberately destroyed in front of witnesses. Karen's smug expression faltered for just a second. That's not what happened. Lisa reached under the counter, pulled out a tablet and with a few taps, brought up the store's security footage. She turned the screen so both Karen and Daniels could see it. There it was, in crystal clear HD, Karen slamming the TV to the ground, the screen shattering, her smug little smirk right before she turned and dared them to do something about it. Daniels went pale. Karen, however, wasn't backing down. That video doesn't prove anything, she snapped. The TV was already broken. Lisa raised an eyebrow. Funny. I don't see any sparks, no flickering, no sign of prior damage. What I do see is you intentionally breaking it in the middle of the store. So tell me, Mr. Daniels, is this the rock-solid case you're here to present? Daniels adjusted his tie again, clearly sweating now. Well, I mean, in legal terms we could argue. Karen cut him off. We don't need their opinion. We're taking this to court. Lisa shrugged. Be my guest. Just know that our corporate legal team is already aware of the situation. If you go through with this, they'll countersue for damages, false claims, and defamation. Hope you've got deep pockets. Karen's face twitched. You're bluffing. Lisa pulled up another screen on the tablet, this time an email from the corporate office. She turned it around. The subject line read, Customer Incident, prepared for legal action if necessary. Daniels audibly swallowed. I might need to step outside for a moment. Karen turned on him with a furious glare. Are you serious right now? Daniels took a careful step back. Look, Karen, this isn't exactly the ironclad case you made it out to be. I think I need to reevaluate my strategy. Reevaluate? I paid you. Jake muttered under his breath. That explains the suit. Daniels gave a half-hearted nod before practically sprinting toward the exit. Karen gawked after him, her face contorted with rage, then turned back to Lisa. You think this is funny? Lisa exhaled, finally allowing herself a smirk. A little bit. Karen's hands clenched into fists. She opened her mouth, no doubt preparing to launch into another tirade, but before she could say a word. Excuse me, ma'am? A voice cut through the tension. Both Karen and Lisa turned to see a tall man in a security uniform standing nearby, arms crossed. His badge gleamed under the fluorescent lights. Karen blinked. What now? The guard's expression remained unreadable. You've been causing multiple disturbances in this store, harassing employees, and attempting to commit fraud. Corporate has made a decision. Lisa arched an eyebrow. Oh. The guard nodded. Karen Whitmore, you are officially banned from this store and all affiliated locations, effective immediately. If you attempt to enter again, law enforcement will be called. For a moment, Karen seemed unable to process the words. Then her face twisted in sheer disbelief. You can't ban me? The guard remained unmoved. We can. And we just did. The color drained from her face. You don't understand, I shop here. Not anymore. Karen whirled on Lisa. This is your fault. Lisa smiled, her voice calm but firm. No, Karen. This is yours. Karen let out a strangled noise somewhere between a scream and a growl. For a brief, terrible moment, it seemed like she might actually lunge at Lisa right then and there. But the presence of the security guard, and the dozen or so customers now openly watching, made her hesitate. With one last furious glare, she grabbed her bag, spun on her heel, and stormed out. The doors slid shut behind her, and just like that, she was gone. For a few beats, the store remained in stunned silence. Then, slowly, a round of applause started from the nearest customer. Another joined in. And then another. Jake turned to Lisa wide-eyed. Did we just get a standing ovation? Lisa laughed. Looks like it. The security guard gave her a nod before walking off. Jake leaned against the counter, shaking his head. You really think she's gone for good? Lisa exhaled. Maybe. Maybe not. She glanced toward the doors as if expecting Karen to burst back in for one last showdown. But this time, there was nothing but the steady stream of normal customers going about their day. For now, at least, the storm had passed. Lisa had barely settled back into her routine when the unmistakable sound of commotion erupted just outside the store. The automatic doors slid open for a moment, allowing a sharp, high-pitched voice to cut through the normal hum of customers. It was her. Again. Karen Whitmore had not gone quietly into the afternoon. Through the glass storefront, Lisa could see her standing just beyond the entrance, her phone gripped tightly in one hand as she ranted into the screen. A small crowd of onlookers had already gathered. This is an outrage. Karen shrieked, angling her camera toward the store's glowing logo. This so-called business is scamming honest customers. They refused to refund my broken television, after years of use, when I had every right to a replacement. Lisa sighed, pinching the bridge of her nose. Of course she's live streaming. Jake, who had been watching from the electronics section, let out a low whistle. She really doesn't know when to quit, huh? The security guard, still stationed near the entrance, shifted uncomfortably. We can't remove her unless she steps inside again, he murmured to Lisa. But if she's blocking customers or causing trouble, we can call the cops. Lisa took a deep breath, squared her shoulders, and made a decision. Without a word, she strode toward the doors and stepped outside, directly into the camera's frame. Karen's eyes widened for a brief moment, but she quickly masked it with another indignant scowl. Oh, look who decided to show up, she spat. The scam artist herself. Everybody meet Lisa, the woman who just committed fraud in broad daylight. Lisa crossed her arms, keeping her expression neutral. Karen, you need to leave. Karen barked a laugh. Oh, I'm not going anywhere. I have rights, Lisa. And guess what? Over 300 people are watching this stream right now. She turned the camera back to herself, flashing a triumphant grin. They see everything. Lisa glanced at the screen. The chat was moving rapidly, a mix of reactions. Some were calling Karen out for being ridiculous. Others were egging her on. And some, probably trolls, were just there for the drama. Lisa met Karen's gaze and gave a small, knowing smile. That's great, Karen. Because if they're watching, then they'll see this. She pulled her own phone from her pocket, tapped a few buttons and held it up so the screen was visible to Karen's audience. The security footage played. Crystal clear. Karen in 1080p resolution, smashing her own television on the floor. The smirk. The arrogance. The aftermath. Karen's triumphant grin froze. The color drained from her face. Lisa turned her phone slightly so Karen could see the live stream chat. The comment section was already erupting. Wait, she broke it herself? LMAO, she thought she could hide this? This woman is actually insane. Karen, this ain't the win you think it is. Karen's mouth opened and closed like a fish gasping for air. She scrambled, flipping the camera back to her. This is manipulated footage. They're doctoring it. Lisa let out a slow, exaggerated sigh. Karen, this is live security footage. I can pull up timestamps, multiple angles, even store witness reports. But hey, she gestured to the phone, you're the one broadcasting your own downfall to hundreds of people. Karen's fingers tightened around her phone. Her face twisted with desperation. You can't, this isn't. The chat was relentless now. Karen just played herself. This is what peak entitlement looks like. Somebody call her a taxi, she's done. Then the final blow. A new notification popped up at the top of Karen's screen, one she clearly wasn't expecting. Your account has been flagged for violating community guidelines. Her stream cut off. The silence that followed was almost deafening. Karen stared at her screen in horror, her moment of internet infamy slipping through her fingers. Then, slowly she lifted her gaze to Lisa. You, she whispered, her voice shaking with barely contained rage. Lisa raised an eyebrow. Me? Karen took a jerky step forward and for the first time, Lisa saw something new in her eyes. Not just anger. Not just entitlement. Panic. Because now it wasn't just about a refund. Karen had been exposed. Completely. And there was no coming back from it. Before she could lunge, the security guard took a firm step between them. That's enough, ma'am. Karen whirled, wild-eyed. Get out of my way. The guard didn't flinch. You're trespassing. You need to leave. Now. Karen's breaths came fast and shallow. Her eyes darted around the parking lot as if searching for some kind of escape. But there was none. The crowd had seen everything. The internet had seen everything. And the final humiliation came when a pair of flashing red and blue lights rolled into the lot. A police cruiser pulled up to the curb. Karen turned a sickly shade of white. Two officers stepped out, their expressions unreadable as they approached. We received multiple complaints about a public disturbance, one of them said. His gaze landed on Karen. Ma'am, is there a reason you're causing a scene outside this business? Karen let out a strangled noise. This is illegal. The officer didn't look convinced. We have reports of harassment, attempted fraud, and trespassing. I'd suggest you lower your voice and explain yourself calmly. Lisa simply stood back, watching the final act unfold. Karen opened her mouth, then closed it. Her hands trembled. Her once unshakable confidence had crumbled to dust. And then, as if realizing there was no way out, she did what she did best. She threw one last tantrum. This is a conspiracy, she shrieked, stamping her foot like a child. I am the victim. I demand justice. Ma'am, the officer said firmly, either you leave peacefully or we escort you out. For a few agonizing seconds, Karen stood frozen. Then, finally, with one last murderous glare at Lisa, she turned on her heel and stormed away. The officers followed her to make sure she left the premises. Lisa exhaled slowly. Jake let out a low whistle. Well, he muttered, that was better than cable TV. The security guard smirked. Probably got better ratings too. Lisa shook her head, amusement flickering in her eyes. I think Karen just lost her starring role. Jake grinned. And got cancelled in real time. As the last of the spectacle faded, Lisa returned inside, the automatic doors sliding shut behind her. The store buzzed with quiet excitement, customers whispering and chuckling about what they'd just witnessed. It wasn't every day justice played out so publicly. And for Lisa, knowing Karen wouldn't be darkening their doorstep again? That was worth every second.